Okay. The exciting topic of dust collection. I got kind of interested in this because, like I think most of you know more about this than I do. You've been in business longer, and what a pain in the ass dust is. And to be honest with you, I have not been able to control dust in my little shop. And so that's kind of what I've been investigating this to some extent. And not completely successfully, I'll admit up front. There's a lot that goes on in this, and Gary's alluded to some of this already, in terms of chips as opposed to particles and whatnot. So there's a few basic things that are interesting little facts here. I'm going to talk about basically what I call three basic systems. There's other ways of describing this, like dust collectors as opposed to dust extractors. I'll say a bit about that, but I've chosen to just look at stationary dust collectors, portable ones, and air cleaners, like was just mentioned. So, for chip collection, they recommend 350 cubic feet per minute of airflow. And this is like a 4-inch pipe at the source of your, whatever's producing chips, whether it's a planer, a bandsaw, table saw, and so forth. If you want to collect the dust, now we're talking 1,000 cubic feet a minute and more. Okay, so that's a hell of a lot of air that has to go through there to really collect the stuff. A shop vac, in contrast, only produces about 70 cubic feet per minute. So 70 cubic feet opposed to 1,000. The difference is, of course, is in the static pressure. That is to say that a shop vac has a lot more suction capacity as opposed to a 4-inch pipe that's trying to pull air through vast amounts. It doesn't have a lot of suction really to it. Whereas a vacuum or some of these specialty dust collection systems, they have a lot of suction, and that's what really works well on small handheld tools. The other interesting stat I saw here, this is 25,400 microns per inch, okay? And this particular dot, this point here, a point in a piece of paper is 360 microns wide. That's the size of it. When we're talking about dust collection, the stuff that affects your lungs and so forth, we're talking about 1 to 10 microns. It goes way, way down there. So that's like a tenth of that size of that dot that you're trying to capture. Okay, so that's a very interesting kind of stat. And the systems will do that. But of course, there's a lot of things that involved in that working or not working so well. But the other thing I wasn't aware of is the buildup of static electricity. When you're running, collecting dust through these plastic pipes collection systems, it builds up static. And it can be quite significant static to give you a real good shock or blow you out of your shop in case there's a lot of dust flying around which catches fire, which is also another interesting part. The other thing that has always bugged me about the whole dust collection thing, and why I'm reluctant to do it, is noise. Noise, I can't stand sitting there trying to turn something, and there's this bloody shop vac going on. And that's only 70 decibels. And when you go from 70 decibels to 80 decibels, it's not a linear progression in noise. It's actually an exponential progression. So 70 decibels, 10 decibel increase from 70 to 80, there's a doubling of the noise at 70, at 80. At 80 to 90, it's a doubling of the noise at 80. So to give an example, a jet taking off 300 feet away, that's 130 decibels. A shop vac, typically around 70. A lot of these, unfortunately, large collection systems, they're a lot louder. They're 70 or 80. So having that in your shop is not very pleasant. But the problem is, if you're not running it, you're not collecting dust, right? So it's floating around. So what do? Well, let's have a look here. So typically, again, I should mention that there's not one solution for everyone, and the reason for that is we all have different size shops. We all have different tools we use and how we use them. Some of us have a shop in the house like I do in a basement, which is terrible. And others luckily have a shed outside, some of us that's totally separate, or in a garage. So the way you control that dust or not control it is going to be different in each of those situations. Like if you're out in your garage, you can open the garage door and have the air blow through, right, through your front door, your garage door, and the other thing. That's one thing you do. But if you're in a basement, in a small room, and you've got, unfortunately, forced air heating, the dust is gonna go through the whole house. Incredible. But so anyway, that's one of the main systems, of course, and this is dust collection. These large units, and they vary in price from about $200 up to $1,500, depending on what you get. And they're quite effective. But there again, they're a source machine, right? This is a 4-inch pipe, and it's trying to deal with a lot of chips, like a lot of load. So like a planer, for example, bandsaw not so much, but a table saw, things like that produce a lot of stuff. You hook these large collectors through pipes up to each of these machines. And there's a very good, if you haven't had a chance to look at it, there's a very good demonstration out here Lee Valley has about these collection systems with all the pipes and the blast gates and automatic, gates you can shut on and off and so forth to run these systems. I haven't seen too many people what the systems they have, but I've seen Steve Stevens swirling, and he has a dust collection system like this, but his unit is outside his shop. It's almost like a separate unit he's built out there, and the pipes run through his wall and then through all the various tools that he has in his shop. And it's a large shop. It's probably twice the size of this, as I recall, roughly. But so he has tubing that runs quite a long ways. Another thing to remember is if you have that kind of tubing, the more tubing you have, the less suction you're going to have. It's like you're starting to get dragged through the system, right? So that's another consideration. And that's why having blast gates, you're shutting a whole system off except for one pipe that is located next to the tool that you're using. So to try to keep that suction up. So that's great, but here, you're talking at a reasonable price tag, and a guy that has a shop like me, 12 feet by 12 feet roughly, and I do mostly turning now, I really can't use a thing like this, right? It just doesn't make a lot of sense for me. So then we go to more, this is another, you can call this like a maybe partially portable and partially stationary system. This is a really nice little system actually. Runs through about 1,250 cubic feet per minute and filters down to 30 microns, so it's really quite good. And what else is there? 78 decibels, it's on the loud side. But it's movable because it has a bracket here, so if you put brackets around your shop, you can pull this thing off and put it on the next bracket and locate it next to the main tool you're using. But as you can see, it's got 2 pipes coming off, so you can hook it up to 2 machines at the same time, shutting one off, of course, when you're using it, and vice versa. So it's an interesting machine, but look at the price difference here. The regular system, you're talking $550 for this. If you want to get it down to 1 micron, the small particles that are going to affect you, you can buy a filter for this thing, but it's an extra $300. So now your $550 thing is going up to $850. And again, it's a nice unit because it's not that large, but again, it's friggin' noisy, right? It's problematic. And again, the thing that's really different, and I've really, looking at this, we are in a really different situation with wood turning. Like all these machines, like saws, band saws, and table saws, and planers, you can hook a pipe up to the damn thing, maybe it has even an outlet for it, exactly, and it goes right to that outlet. Where's the outlet when you're doing turning? I mean, what happens to me is, shit is flying on both sides of my head, right? I'm still not collecting. Now, how do you collect it? Right? You can't put the thing in front of you. So it's really difficult for us. And you produce so much stuff that basically within half an hour, you're standing knee deep in chips, right? So it's not a very, these kinds of systems they're not terribly effective for what we're doing. It's interesting because the next thing I'll show you, or the one after this, well, the guy that does I Need a Dust Systems, he was a dust expert, he's a dust engineer, and he invented this Cyclone separator, I'll say a little bit about cyclonic separator. And he works, or he's with the New York Turners Association, so he helps all the boys out. And he uses 2 collectors, one that's a pipe that's right down below the banjo, essentially. And then he's got another collector in behind. But now again, you're talking about 2 bloody systems running at the same time. So again, unless this equipment is outside your shop somewhere, hopefully insulated, you're going to go nuts in about 10 minutes listening to that noise. To say too, with turning, your machine is on continuously, whereas if you're sawing, typically you saw a board or 2 and it's off. You know, your bandsaw, you saw a couple of circles, it's off. Planer, run a board through, it's off. But in a, as you know, a turner, you can sit there for 2 friggin' hours turning away. And you can't have this stuff running. I mean, I can't have it running. So there are these, what I refer to as portable systems. In other words, some of them are also more dust extractors than dust collectors, but they do both. So that distinction is a bit of a red herring, because the dust collectors don't do a very good job of extraction, whereas dust extractors don't do a very good job of collecting. It's kind of interesting, but they actually do both. But the extractors are good, because these are the guys that have HEPA filters and all that kind of stuff, and they really suck the dust out, right? But they're expensive as hell. So you get your, you know, your Festival out here, really nice machine. But again, it's made for handheld equipment. So like a hand sander, or you know, a circular handheld circular saw, these kinds of things. They all have exhaust. Most of these new tools now, they have exhaust vents on them, or pipes, and you can hook your vac or whatever right onto those things, and it sucks the air right out from that tool. And because the suction is so great, like this thing produces, as I said, 140 cubic feet per minute, so typically twice what a regular shop vac does. So it can raise a column of water 96 inches in a 2-inch pipe, so there's real suction power there. And that's what you need. You cannot hook a 4-inch pipe, okay, like this dust collector, onto a 2-inch vent coming out of a shop tool, you know, a hand tool, because there's just no suction there. You're not going to get anywhere with it. So that's why there's a difference here. But so something like this, I mean, I wouldn't buy, because I don't do enough work. I mean, if you are, you know, doing woodwork or whatever as a profession, something you do professionally, then yeah, you would have to consider it. Or if you're doing it for, like, these things are really good if you're, for example, sanding chip rock or something, right? And you go into somebody's house, it's not over the place. These things are right there, sanding away, and it sucks it right away. So they're really very good. But I think replacing a filter, these things are about $200, $300. It's quite expensive.
They come in 2 packs. I can't
Yeah.
remember offhand.
Depending on what you get, package. So
They're not
again,
cheap.
it's not cheap, right? So I ran across this little guy, and this is, you know, yes, dust collection and no dust collection, but it's great. I bought one of these things like 2 or 3 weeks ago. It's what I refer to as cyclonic separator, right? But this little gadget here, it's just this little thing here, and you can use any bucket, right? It captures 99% of the dust and chips and crap that come out of whatever you're working on. And it gets captured here, just drops in here before it hits your vac. Okay? You can also introduce this. They have different sizes, so you can put this gadget in between your huge dust collector with 4-inch pipes and your whatever it is you're collecting dust from. And so you say, well, why bother? I got I got a shop vac. There's a canister there that collects the dust and drops it there. Why would I want to drop it in here? Well, the big deal is that if you've ever tried to use a shop vac for any length of time, 20 minutes into your sucking dust out, like I use mine basically when I'm sanding. And I'll hook it up behind my lathe, put the nozzle up and turn it and try not to suck this dust out, right? But still there's dust flying around, as it is. But it's proof positive, it does that. It collects 99% of dust before it hits the canister. And it's also 99% of dust before it hits your filter. And before, when I was using my shop vac, within 30 minutes, depending on what I was collecting, my shop vac lost half its power. It was no longer sucking 70 CFM, right? And not only that, but it was also full of crap. Like it's loading up. And I thought, I'm going to do it all the time. Take the filter off, bang it, shake it, get it out, put it back on. Not a nice thing. But this thing, you basically eliminate that. You can go on and on, fill many, many buckets before you have to look at your shop vac or other filter. So again, if you have the other system I showed you before, that kind of the one that's hanging on the wall, that's a $300 filter. Well, if I can save 99% of stuff that's going to that filter by doing this, that keeps my filter much longer life, right? It's gonna save you a lot of money. This little unit is like, I wouldn't buy the whole thing. It's expensive. It's $140. It doesn't make a lot of sense because it's a plastic bucket. But you can buy just this unit and get your own bucket and do it. You can also Lee Valley sells lids, and this is the outlet and inlet. It works the same with cyclonic effect as the air gets pulled through. And they have different size lids, so you can get a lid like this that fits a garbage can, just like a regular metal one like that. And it does basically the same thing as the one I showed you. It's a little less efficient, it's about 95%, I think. Whereas the Dust Deputy really does about 99% of collection before it hits your suction unit, whatever it is. So that's a good thing. And those of you who are inventive, like Richard, well, you make your own, right? You can do that too. You just, I don't know, you just a piece of plastic around, a couple of boards, and you set it on top of a garbage can, and away you go. That's a typical setup. Some of them, they just build a little platform, they attach it to it so that the two things can travel along together. That works relatively well. But it's, if you get anything out of this thing and you haven't seen this before, really look into this. It's really well worthwhile to look at this. And cost-wise, for everything I mentioned, it's the cheapest thing going.
But that only works for a 2-inch, not for
Yeah, but you can also get them for 4-inch. Okay? So there are different units, or you can make your own. You go to like everywhere else, go to YouTube. They'll show you how to make the bloody things, right? So either metal or out of plastic, whatever. So it works really well. Then there's this little guy, the air cleaner, which Gary mentioned, that one sitting up there. That to me is very attractive for a shop like mine, right? And it's not, I was surprised, it's not that pricey. It's like runs $200 to $600, depending again on size and whatnot. But for a shop like mine, 12 by 12, you could probably get by with a $200, $300 one. And they have the remote controls. They also have time settings, so in other words, they're going all the time. And when you leave your shop, you can leave them on for an hour or two, because typically would circulate one like this, it shows you here, in a 400 square foot room, circulates the air in that room about 7.5 times an hour. So the interesting about this room, you know how this gets used. You've been in here, done turning and seeing all the dust that's going on, the dust that's there. This room is relatively clean. I mean, you look around you, and I don't think Gary's out there with a feather duster going on and taking the dust off. And I think a lot of it is due to that, if you run that. And the other thing about it is, my biggest problem with all this stuff is noise. These things run at about 60 decibels. And that's barely a little bit of a hum. So it's not very disturbing. So if you have an enclosed space, like if you're in even a room like this, any kind of a room that's enclosed, something like that is ideal. And you set it to the side of the wall so that the air circulates around this way. You don't put it in the middle of the room. You should put it on an edge somewhere, and it will circulate all the way through. Again, you're gonna have to pay filter costs. I don't know what the filters are for those things, I don't say, but nothing like the cost of some of the filters I mentioned here.
Well, that's just a standalone unit, there's no piping, nothing?
No, it's just like you see here. It just hangs from the ceiling. So it's not a bad thing to look into. So once you're past this, you notice the things I've talked about so far, they're not great for turners. I mean, so you got the bulk stuff. You can't, you collected a 4-inch pipe, you can't hold this darn thing and kind of trying to collect it as you're going along, or have somebody stand next to it, I guess, to do it. I don't know how you do it. I mean, I've seen it, you've seen them used, I've seen people put their 4-inch pipe behind the lathe, and it collects a few chips, but it collects some dust, so it's really not that effective in my mind. So then you're stuck with the thing that I also do not like, and I mean, you probably watch videos like I do. How many people are wearing masks when they're turning? You do, great. I look at the videos, none of these guys are doing it, you know? And so that's a really good thing, especially because all the stuff I've mentioned, this is dust in the air and floating around, you're still gonna get it, right? When you're turning, it doesn't matter how good your system is. Even get a 1,000 cubic feet per minute system, there's still gonna be dust coming out the air. And that stuff, it's incredible. In my little shop, I've got a bookshelves that got tools and stuff on it. I've got a shower curtain around it to kind of keep the dust from running on it. That thing is loaded. It's just, and I can't, it also forms a film, so that you can't even blow the dust off anymore. You have to wipe it off. Mm-hmm. So it's really pretty nasty stuff, and I can see it as I'm sanding away. I can see the stuff wafting out, right? Or if I don't put a mask on, I blow my nose. I say, geez, I should have had the mask on because I don't have stuff to breathe in.
And scare yourself, do it after you've done some to do.
Yeah.
Finger bleeding.
Yeah. So for us, this is one of the great dust collectors. It's the cheapest. and you collect a hell of a lot of stuff, usually that, right? So that's the thing that probably collects 90% of the stuff we're doing.
I bought one of those. when I
The other
was
thing is,
birthday.
you can think of things that preempt dust to begin with, and I'm thinking of wet sanding, like, get a jar of Richard's Nova Silk and sand with that. It really does cut down the amount of dust that's floating around. And anything else you can think of that basically controls the dust. So if you're turning wet wood, of course, there's also a lot less dust as well. So you're getting reams of stuff off instead of chips, typically, that kind of stuff. But, how often do you turn wet wood, or can you turn wet wood? So that's not always a solution. So, like in my own case, I'm still a very unhappy camper. I don't know what to do. I don't wanna spend $600 on some machine, to be honest with you. It's like we all buy this other stuff and the last thing we think about is dust collection. I'm seriously thinking of getting one of those and not worrying so much about trying to collect dust at the source for my room, because that to me is the thing that's most bothersome. And it's also eliminates, for me anyway, the noise situation. Not listening to something grinding in the background. Because the other thing I can't do is I can't locate anything outside my shop, because that's the rest of the house kind of thing, so it's racket in there. So I'm kind of limited, and as I say, every shop situation is different, so you might be able to locate something outside your shop. But it's, as I said, for turners, I think it's a very unique problem, and I don't think there's really a great solution out there yet.
Well, Richard's compound is an actual abrasive compound.
Yes.
For sanding, whatever. You can put together sanding wax, which Ted, I think, had some put together, it was a couple of years ago. It's basically was a mineral oil and beeswax in some proportion.
Yeah,
I've tried it,
denatured
it's
earth.
fine. It doesn't mess up your finish very much. So the other thing you said too about a collector on the lathe. Well, yeah, we're gonna have chips, but as was mentioned, the chips aren't a big problem unless they go in your mouth or something. You have chips, but the dust is a real problematic thing. If you have an actual collector pulling the dust in at the lathe, this would probably help. Don't worry about collecting the chips.
Yeah.
Just try and collect the dust. And I've seen a lot of attempts at making, what do you call them, a hood? Something of pop bottles, of 4-inch PVC, of some weird thing.
Yeah.
You can buy things out of black plastic over at Busy Bee. I'm not sure what that could be used for, but they could be efficient.
Yeah.
And the other thing too with your ductwork, a 90-degree bend in your ductwork is equivalent in resistance to 10 feet of pipe.
Right. Yeah.
Now, I don't know what
Yeah, you'll
the
see that up
45
here.
elbows, but.
Yeah, you see on the display, they have all the
Really
45
cut
angle
on your flow.
pipes coming out, which is, it's ideal.
There's, if you notice the pipe in here too, it's spiraled
Yeah.
wound.
Oh, right.
That's specifically made for dust collection, because it makes the chips and dust eddy inside. When you have solid side ones with joints, what happens is it collects in those spots and
Yeah.
starts to plug up and reduces your efficiency.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
So
not cheap.
Yeah.
The only drawback to the shop vac idea, and I use that on mine,
Yeah.
is you're going through shop vacs.
Yeah. But as I say, if you get one of these dust deputy things or a Cyclone saver, it'll extend your life at least 4 or 5 times, I'm sure. Because you're just not doing it.
Aren't you running 2 machines at once then?
No, it's not a machine. It's basically, I mean, it's a bit of a pain in the butt because you've got 2 buckets essentially, right? But like I said, where is that?
Isn't it in essence running off the shop vac?
Oh, it does, yeah. It's just a,
Cycle.
basically it's
A
a,
pre-filter.
yeah,
There's not enough suction in
It's just a.
your vacuum system to
Oh, there we
push
go.
or
That's-
the dead space so the solids fall down.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's nothing here, there's nothing mechanical, it's a plastic tube that comes down this far. And the plastic tube goes in here, right? So this one here is actually coming off your vac, that's the suction end. And this end goes to whatever tool you're using or whatnot. So this is kind of, it just sits in between, and it doesn't make any noise, it's nothing to it. It's just a cyclone effect that creates, that allows the dust to drop before it gets up into this pipe. Because the air is coming in, the way it would work is, air is getting sucked up, let me think here now. Here, it's getting sucked down this way and then back up, right, to get out here, it has to come out this way.
Well, actually, that's your input on the side. The output's coming up from the top.
The operator goes in and does.
No.
Well, that's how the cyclone.
It goes in and does the spin.
Comes in on the
Comes
side,
out the
spins it
center.
around the
Yeah.
cone.
Yeah, but this is the thing that's going to your back, right?
Yes.
Yeah, right, sorry. That's going to your back.
Now the way around.
Wait,
Other way around.
No, no,
The
no,
other way around.
Yeah,
Solid stuff.
Yeah, no, you're right.
The
Yes.
horizontal
Yeah.
side is
The
the
top
input.
goes to the back,
the side
sorry.
is where the chips come in.
Goes to the back, so it's sucking up through here.
Is it air,
But
that
it's,
black part is
it's
not
fun, you can watch it, you know, because it's plastic. When you're sucking it up, you can just see it whirling, and it's really, really quite neat. And I think what's really phenomenal is like, I can fill up a bucket like this, right? Fill it up, and I take the cover off, it's full, I take the cover off my shop vac, and there's just a little coating of dust on the bottom, it's all clear. It also means, so the filter is also, I mean, it's obviously there's dust getting into the filter, but nowhere near what I was getting with it, just direct suction, you know, from a sucker into that thing. Which it just, the bugger plugged up every 25 minutes.
Another benefit of having a cyclone before your dust collector is the chips and stuff don't go through the impeller.
Right, yes.
Like, you know, with the
Yeah.
standalone one, everything goes through the impeller, so you have a big piece of wood go down there.
True, yeah, that's right,
Planer.
yeah,
You ever pick up a wood screw?
yeah. So it's a very cheap thing, if you haven't thought of it, really look into it, because it's worthwhile. So it's a bit of a pain because it's a separate unit, right, that's okay. But you can fix that with hoses, you can just let your can sit over there beside, and you can, whatever length you want to use. But the suction is great and it's continuous, there's no drop in suction through the whole process, which is what's really nice as well.
There, sorry, Bill, but if you just think about the snowstorm we just had, it explains some of the cyclonic action. If you've got a driveway that's cut in the side of a hill, you'll know that the snow is almost non-existent on your lawn until it gets over the top of your driveway. It hits that dead air space and it drops in and fills in your driveway, right? You get these big drifts.
Yeah.
Same idea here, you're bringing in the dust on the side, swirling it around, that slows it down, the big stuff wants to fall out. The other stuff is left in suspension, it gets sucked away to your shop vac or your collector.
Yeah. But I mean, not even the dust goes down.
Oh, some of it will, yeah.
A lot
The
of it
bigger the
does.
particles, the faster they're gonna go down.
But a lot of it does, I mean, to the extent that I said, if you get just almost a little film on the bottom of your shop vac, with filling one of these cans.
Are these things available locally?
Yeah,
Busy
the
bees.
Bisbee sells, you can buy this unit through Amazon,
Hmm.
it's like a
Better
$35
price
or
than
something.
Amazon.
$20.
But they're cheaper units.
So would you, in your shop, which
Yeah.
sounds very similar to mine,
Yeah.
would you go with that, or would you go with that?
Yeah,
I'd rather-
I'd go with both, 'cause this doesn't cost much.
Okay,
This is $30,
yeah.
and that's 200, I really have to go for that in my shop, to just catch all that floating stuff. And it floats forever.
They just pull the chain on the side there. Can somebody
Can
just
someone
stand
just reach up and pull that cord?
there?
See how much noise it makes?
That gets rid of
Shit,
That's
that wouldn't
probably
even bother my
speed, so
dog.
Pull it again, get a lower speed. And then I think it goes off.
Yeah,
That's a low speed there.
That's the lowest, it's still working?
it. Yeah.
Maybe not, no.
I can hear my radio, I got mine going, radio's going, I can hear the radio.
different units are gonna be
Yeah, yeah.
different noise, and you can also insulate that a bit, don't you want, right?
One thing I found when I put I call it a swirl bucket, same
Yeah.
idea. I had to go to bags on my shop vac because it was blowing dust out my exhaust because of the dust was collecting in the shop vac. It was blowing dust out the exhaust port.
Oh, right,
Once I shifted to bags, no problem.
It's probably because
No cake.
you don't have the cake on the filter,
Yeah.
and so that fine particles are just going right through the filter.
Yeah.
Because the filters on a shop vac normally
Yeah.
don't
Just
don't
sponge.
only handle maybe 15 microns,
Mhm.
10 microns.
What's a
Everything
cake?
else can go through.
What's a cake?
That's, the dust builds
The
up
dust
on the
builds up
inside,
on-
and it's good to leave it there, because it gives you a greater filter.
Yeah, but it does reduce your power though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
You don't get much down, don't lose much, but it's a better filter.
Yeah,
I tried using mine without the bag, that was a disaster.
so anything else, any observations, anybody got better ideas about how they're handling this stuff?
Well,
This is
I
just
just
dust,
mentioned,
yeah,
you
right.
will find that I have a Cyclone on mine at home, and what you get coming down, like I have another plastic bag, which there's a drum that goes around inside the filter and drops everything down. It is extremely fine dust
Yeah,
Yep.
that it is capturing.
The other thing to remember, by the way, if you put a plastic bag in here, you have to weight it down.
Yeah.
You suck the thing right up and cut it right off. So, or if you get a weak plastic bucket, the bucket will just collapse.
A lot of them, like if you buy the commercial one, they'll have a wire cage
Yes.
inside, and that keeps the plastic down.
The other thing they put on here, by the way, when they sell it, they also sell you or it comes with a little metal strip you stick on there, and that's your, to ground the darn thing. Because you can see if you don't do that, the dust starts collecting on this thing, you can see it's becoming to build, just from static electricity, so.
I think they've even come out with one now that the tube goes down into water in the bucket for when you're doing drywall. It actually coagulates the dust into the water and you catch them all.
Use it over again.
That's awesome.
Anyway, they don't apparently recommend this with the fest tool, but I've seen it where they actually do. They
Oh,
actually,
closest.
oops, sorry.
No, that's good.
Yeah,
That's good.
they actually have it with a special one that's allowed to work with the fest tool. It does the same thing. I mean, it saves your filters, which are expensive.
But how often do you change a filter in the fest tube, tails up and drops off? Once every 3 or 4 years?
Not really, this one out here, it gets used quite a bit, and you can't, it's got a cardboard ring on it, so once that thing fills up, you can't empty it, like sometimes you can cheat and empty them out,
I mean,
but those ones you can't.
you're talking a bag, but he's talking about the filter on the top.
Oh, the
bag,
filter, I apologize, I was
Yeah,
thinking
the
about
bags
that.
are not expensive,
Yeah,
they go
no.
through maybe 10
Yeah,
bags
those
a
have
year.
the filter, they take quite a while to use those up, yeah.
But that filter, I haven't changed it yet.
Yeah, no, I would anticipate that, I was mistaken.
Okay.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Now we have Cal.